So thank you everyone for joining us for this mantra meditation. If you have any questions about this mantra meditation, after the end of Mara's class, there will be some time for question and answers. You can also ask during that time, or later on during when the dinner is served. So our schedule is now we'll have class, and after that we have a dinner downstairs. So during the dinner prasadam also we can help you if you have any questions. Okay. So coming up on the calendar, this next Sunday, which is 27th of March, we'll be celebrating our Holi festival. Haribol! So Holi is one of the fun festivals of the year. We just come and all devotees come together. So we'll have 5 o'clock onwards, we'll have a short class by Maharaj. He'll be talking about what is Holi, why do we actually celebrate it. And then after that we'll go downstairs, there'll be nice food stalls. We have some special prasadam, pizzas and things like that. And then after that we'll have nice Holi playing. And during the Holi, actually when we go downstairs, first of all His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj is going to lead us in some wonderful kirtans with his guitar, so that's always nice. And we'll have some nice performances by Champaklata Mataji. And then we'll have Holi playing, and then we'll end with our final dinner prasadam. Okay, so next Sunday will be very nice. Please spread the word. If you're not on a mailing list or a WhatsApp group, please let us know. We can add you to our group so that you'll be in touch with all our upcoming festivals. But please to join us next Sunday. 5 o'clock onwards is Holi, and at 4 o'clock till 5 we'll have a regular schedule here. Okay. And also just keep the dates in mind. On 10th of April is Sri Ram Navami, appearance day of Lord Ramchandra. And this year is actually falling on a Sunday. So it'll be a very nice festival. Is that right? I think that's right, yeah. 10th of April is a Sunday. So Ram Navami will be on a Sunday, and we'll have a wonderful festival. So next week is Holi, and 10th of April is Sri Ram Navami festival. Okay. So thank you so much. So without further ado, we'll have the class by His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj. We request devotees, you can kindly come forward. It's a nice intimate crowd today, so we can come forward. We'll have nice katha with Maharaj, and you all can be a part of it. Hare Krishna.
Turn the microphone off. Wait a second. Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna. What loud is it? Is it loud enough? How about now? Too low? How about now? Okay. Okay, that's loud enough now, right? Hey, Hare. Hare Krishna. Let's try just this. How about now? Everyone can hear me now? All right, let's just use a regular microphone today. Because today is not a special day, but we are actually praying for the welfare of all the people, not only the devotees, but the people who are in, thank you, the people who are in Ukraine and Russia and praying for peace on earth, goodwill towards men, as they say, and goodwill towards women too. And good, no, thank you. So we're going to chant the prayers of the Lord Nrsingadev, and I think most of you know the prayers of the Lord Nrsingadev. And Lord Nrsingadev is the half-man, half-lion incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he saves his devotees. Particularly, he saved one little boy named Prahlad Maharaj from an abusive situation. So he can save the whole world from an abusive situation. So we'll chant his prayer first before we talk about today's subject matter. Namaste Narasingaya, Namaste Narasingaya, Balada Lada Dayane. Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha, Shilatam Kanakolai, Itona Singa, Paratona Singa, Yato Yamitona Singa, Bahir Singo, Retire Singo, the swing of a tim, Charanambra Pajoy, the swing of a tim, Charanambra Pajoy. Kavakara Kamala Prayana Kama Buddha Singha Galita Hiranya Kasi Buddhana Bringa Esabadrita Narahari Rupa Radakade Sade Jaya Gade Sade, Jaya Gade Sade, Kapakara Kamala Bhavena Kama Buddha Singha, Radita Hiranya Kasi Buddhana Venga. Isavadrita Narani Rupa Dakade Sade Dakade Sade Dakade Sade Kapakara Kamala Prena Kama Buddha Singha Galita Hiranyakasipu Danubrenga Desavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaidagade Sade Jaidagade Sade Jaidagade Sade Navakara Kamala Prena Kama Buddha Singha Galita Hiranyakasipu Danubrenga Isavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaidagade Sade Ilakade Sade, Zakati Sade, Diana Singadev, 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 Diana Singadev, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Nasringadev, 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 Jaya Nasringadev. Haribo, 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 Hatibo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Paramahansa, all Sitara Sitashi Shimad, His Divine Grace. Abhaya Charana, the Bhaktivedanta. Sayam Kunda, Radhakunda, Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Maturadam Ki Jai, Jagadasami Ki Jai, Yamurmai Ki Jai, Shrimati Lasidevi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta, Vrindi Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda, Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnuparaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadeja Jatarni. So, Homagana Timidanda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur and Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigare Namaha. So I thought this afternoon we'd do something a little interesting. We're going to read a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. How about that? And I think I'm doing this because there's a short, small amount of people here, and I see some people who have probably come here for the first time, need a more introductory presentation of Krishna consciousness. I was going to present something from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Jaiva Dharma, but it's a little advanced for right now, so I think we need to go back to the ABCs. And the ABCs in Krishna consciousness are actually quite interesting, because like it's a sweet ball, like any type or any place you bite off of a sweet, it tastes sweet. Whether it's the lower section or the higher section or the middle section or the right section or the left section. So the Bhagavad Gita is actually very sweet. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna, of course, over 5,000 years ago in the Battle of Kurukshetra. And we're going to read from the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The 6th chapter is called Dhyana Yoga, or Meditational Yoga. And we're going to read the last verse in the 6th chapter, which is actually one of the most important verses. And then we're going to talk about it. And let's see, Prabhupada's purport is quite large. And so we can read, let's see if it's, no, it's not too large. We can read the whole purport and comment as we're reading it. So text 47 in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita goes as follows in Sanskrit. Yoginam api sarvesham. No, not necessary. No, you don't have to repeat it. I'm just going to read. Yoginam api sarvesham adgatenantaratmana shadavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mataha. And the translation is, and of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So let me explain briefly what has gone on before here in this particular chapter. In this particular chapter, Krishna is describing more or less the what we call the Ashtanga or meditational yoga system. And this yoga system has 8 parts. That's why it's called Ashtanga. Ashtanga means 8 limbs or 8 parts. And so those 8 parts are as follows. The first part is called yum. And that doesn't mean something that's delicious. You know, you say, that's yummy or something. But yum means there's things you got to avoid to be a yogi. Why do you have to avoid? Well, I mean, just let's say if you're trying to start a fire, you definitely have to avoid the rain or water, right? I mean, it's not so conducive to starting a fire. So there's certain things in yoga that are positive or negative injunctions. Negative injunctions are things that prevent yoga. And in fact, what is yoga anyway? Let's talk about what yoga is. The word yoga comes from the Sanskrit root yuj, which means to connect. To connect. Now, to connect what to what? That's very interesting, because many people, they're performing yoga and they think yoga means physical exercises, right? But that's not connection. That's not yoga. That's gymnastics. So those who call themselves yogis should be called gymnastic, whatever your name is, or coach. Actually, coach would be a better word than yogi, right? You know, like you have coaches and everything, like a football coach, a basketball coach, weightlifting coach, a trainer, right? So they're not yogis. Let's get that straight. I mean, even though there's all these different schools that you hear about yoga, there's one school in, I think it's all over the world, not just in America, where they turn up the heat to about 120 degrees. You're supposed, I'm not going to mention the name. Please, there's not an advertisement for any boogie yogi. So where they turn up the heat, and there's so many different yoga schools, yoga this, yoga that. But the real meaning of yoga is to connect. And to connect to what? To connect to the Supreme Absolute Truth. Now, the Supreme Absolute Truth has two basic aspects to him, or you could say it to him. There's the personal aspect and there's the impersonal aspect. And so in Krishna consciousness, we follow and worship the personal aspect because persons are always superior to impersons, just like you have your energies or things that you own. So I can either worship you, things you own, or serve the things you own, or serve you. You know, let's say you have a nice car, like a Tesla, for example. I can say, boy, I really love your car. All right, it's okay. It's your energy, you know, belongs to you. Okay, at least he appreciates me. But if I say, I really like you, you're really, you know, intelligent, you have all sorts of good qualities, I think that's a lot more impressive and ultimately yields to a closer relationship if you actually approach someone personally rather than through the thing, I really like your house, I really like your car, I really like your dog. You know, whatever. So, so impersonalism is like that. And it's really difficult. In the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about the difficulty in yoga, klesha dikatarastation of yakta shakta chittasam. He said, for those who are living entities, or embodied, or even disembodied, advancement in the impersonal path is very difficult, because what do you meditate on? I mean, what is your motivation? I mean, motivation is actually a very important subject matter. Of course, many people are motivated to take up the impersonal path because they're having such a bad time in this world. So in other words, it's escapism. So that's a big motivation. I find that a lot when I'm speaking to people at the university. Many people follow certain individuals who say, chant Hare Krishna so you can become Krishna, become one with Krishna, or become love, or something like that. I find that rather discouraging because I want to love Krishna. I don't want to become Krishna. I don't want to be just love, some energy hanging out there. But I can understand the motivation that they have. They've had such a bad time in this material world because, as Krishna says in the Gita, Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. This material world has a lot of problems to it. You know, miseries. You know, janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshana darshanam. That one sees birth, death, disease, and old age. So there's a lot of problems. So I understand that motivation. But you don't really get happiness by going in that direction. The reason you don't get happiness is because there's no positive interaction or relationships. You know, happiness comes from relationships. Sambandha comes from relationships. Now, yes, they become relieved, but those who actually enter the impersonal path, and even if they achieve perfection, after a while they get frustrated because they don't have that positive happiness. The Srimad Bhagavatam says, Aruya Kachena Param Padam Tata, that ultimately they come back down again and they just become ordinary prabhus. Ordinary, they just go back to business and they open up a car factory, they become Elon Musk or something like that. So, or a politician, or open up hospitals or something like that. So ultimately, that's a path of frustration. Even though people take it up because they're frustrated, ultimately they become frustrated because they don't have that personal interaction. Because as souls, our ultimate happiness is loving relationships. If you think about it, if all of our other needs are met, let's say if you have enough food, if you have enough money, if you have enough freedom to do what you want, the weather is pretty good, you want to have some relationships. If you're just by yourself, it's not fun. Just like when I was young, sometimes I would do things by myself and it wasn't fun. I would go skiing, for example, when it was colder than this. The snow, and it wasn't fun going skiing alone. So relationship is where you get ultimate happiness if all the other needs are met. But if the other needs are not met, you won't even think about relationships. Like if you're hungry or if you're in pain, then you're just going to think about escaping. So that's why generally people take to what we call impersonalism, or a misunderstanding of the absolute. But the highest aspect of the absolute is personal. And why do we say that? In addition to giving us more pleasure, the reason we say that is because we have variety here and personalities here. And so here in this world, we are a reflection of the spiritual realm. Just like we have all these different varieties here, so in the spiritual realm there must be varieties. So anyway, so in this way, we can understand the highest realization, both from the standpoint of our pleasure and both from the standpoint of just philosophy, is a loving relationship with the Absolute, a loving relationship with the Supreme Person, a loving relationship with whom we call Krishna. Now, some people say, this is very interesting, we've heard this criticism, that sort of approach is for less intelligent people. You've heard this before, the bhakti. It's for less intelligent people. Us intelligent people will engage in a thorough analysis of the material world. That's called Sankhya Yoga. It's a different type of yoga. But bhakti is actually for the most intelligent people, because you come to the conclusion that bhakti is the topmost, utilizing your analysis. And if you read some of these bhakti literatures, not only the Bhagavad Gita, but the literatures written by our great acharyas, you'll see, like Srila Jiva Goswami, they're at a philosophical level that's unexcelled in any other spiritual path. So I've been very clear that bhakti yoga is what Krishna is pointing out here. But bhakti yoga means to connect to Krishna. So how do you connect to Krishna? You connect to Krishna through the process of yoga. Yoga means connection, connect to Krishna through yoga. And basically, whether you're talking about bhakti yoga or Sankhya yoga or hatha yoga, it ultimately means controlling the mind. And of course the senses. Because without controlling the mind and the senses, there's no connection. For example, if you have a relationship with someone else and your mind is diverted and you're looking at your mobile phone while you're trying to have a relationship with someone else, it doesn't work. So the mind has to be focused. You see that whenever you interact with someone. I mean, for example, many years ago, when I was trying to interact with my mother, I would chant Hare Krishna at the same time. And she got very frustrated, and that wasn't a relationship. Or I wasn't trying to interact with my mother. She was trying to interact with me, because I was a fanatic Hare Krishna devotee at that particular juncture. So we have to be focused to control the mind. So in this particular chapter, Hatha Yoga is analyzed by Krishna as a method of trying to control the mind. So ultimately, one can love Krishna. And so, as Krishna makes his as Krishna is making his different recommendations in this particular chapter, Arjuna is actually getting a little scared, because he's making his recommendations that require a lot of physical austerity. For example, in the system that Arjuna is hearing about in this particular chapter, one has to go to a secluded place, one has to sit down on deerskin, one has to be alone, and it's a very, very difficult process. Ultimately, it does end up with bhakti, but it's a preliminary activity to control the mind to end up with bhakti. But if one takes up bhakti yoga immediately, as Krishna says here in the Gita, It is the highest. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Because the bhakti itself, bhakti of course means devotion, can help one focus one's mind better than any other process. Like we find even in this world, when people fall in love, they become very focused for about 6 months. After that, forget it. But anyway, so they become very focused because it's from the heart. They just think of that person 24 hours a day. So the whole point of bhakti yoga is to think of Krishna 24 hours a day. So how do you think of Krishna 24 hours a day? That's very difficult, isn't it? Why do we think of anything in this world? Right now, it's beautiful outside. Okay, it's attractive. I can think of it for about 5 minutes. I can't really focus on it for more than 5 minutes, how beautiful it is, the weather is nice, the breeze is blowing, the sun is shining, the bees are chirping. Chirp, chirp. So, for 5 minutes I can focus on it. But after that, my mind wants to go somewhere else. So let's say if you could take all the attractive features of this world and they would be present and to an infinite degree in one person, then you would not be able to take your mind off of that person. Just like we like to read about so-called attractive people in this world. You have your Bollywood actors and actresses and Hollywood actors and actresses. And, we just read about, I don't. We read about them because they have some attractive feature to them. So the whole point of bhakti yoga is to be attracted to Krishna, who is the most attractive person. But right now, because we are covered by what's called the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, our attraction for Krishna, which is natural, it's inherent in the soul, is blocked. Just like if I have dirty glasses, then I'm not attracted to anyone here, but anyway, my vision of everyone here, because nobody's here, is all attractive, except for the deities on the altar. So my vision is blocked, but when I cleanse the glasses, then my vision is clear and I can actually see what's on the other side. So in the same way, our hearts have been contaminated. Now, how have our hearts been contaminated? Our hearts have been contaminated because we've been out playing in the mud, just like children play in the mud for too long. I'm sure if you have children, your children play a lot, they become dirty, there's mud all over them or dirt all over them, and you have to give them a shower or bath. Cleanse them in some way, right? So, and then when you cleanse them, you can actually see how nice they look. So in the same way, we can cleanse our consciousness by the process of bhakti so that we can actually see Krishna directly and be spontaneously attracted to him. So what is the process of bhakti yoga that Krishna is recommending here in the Gita? It's several aspects to the process of bhakti yoga. Right now, because we are not so much attracted to Krishna, because we are blocked, our vision is blocked, our consciousness is blocked, our consciousness is covered, then we need to engage in something that will uncover the consciousness or uncover our vision. And because we don't have a taste for it right now, we have to utilize what we call the buddhi, or the intelligence, to engage in that process. And so Krishna consciousness, therefore, is sometimes called buddhi yoga, or the yoga of intelligence, or yoga of intention. Your buddhi can also mean intention. So in other words, we know what we want. Right now we're not attracted to it. Just like if you have some disease like jaundice. Jaundice, sugar doesn't taste very nice. So in order to overcome jaundice, Prabhupada gives this example, then one has to take something sweet, even though sweet things don't even taste good at that particular point. So you have to, in one sense, go against the grain. And I don't want to use the word force yourself, because you're not really forcing yourself. You're choosing to do something that's good for you. Like people go to school, like the children go to school. They don't always enjoy going to school, do you? Do you enjoy going to school? Oh, no. No, actually, even Prabhupada didn't enjoy going to school. His mother had to hire someone to drag him to school every day because he would never go to school. But because we know that there's an ultimate goal, we choose to do something. Because like many of you go to work. You may not like to go to work, but you choose to go to work because your goal is to, I guess, pay the mortgage for the house so you can raise your children nicely, so you have enough to eat. But the work itself, sometimes you have to use your intelligence. It's not someone who is not using intelligence in the mode of ignorance, all they can do is nothing. They just get drunk and they don't ever accomplish anything in their lives. And they can't even wake up in the morning. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, it describes someone in the mode of ignorance, their determination never goes beyond procrastination and putting off for tomorrow what can be done today. Yeah, tomorrow I'll get up and get a job. Okay, tomorrow I won't drink anymore. Tomorrow I won't smoke anymore. Tomorrow I'll go on a diet. I'm sure some of you have heard that before. Tomorrow I'll become a vegetarian. Tomorrow I'll chant Hare Krishna. Tomorrow and tomorrow. But tomorrow doesn't come. That's the problem. So, as Krishna describes in the second chapter, to accomplish anything in this world, one has to be goal-oriented. He calls that, in Sanskrit, it's ekeha kuranandana. One has to be focused on a particular goal. Then one can be successful. So spiritual life is like that too. In the beginning, we don't see Krishna so much. I mean, we understand philosophically, intelligently, that Krishna is there. The goal of life will become happy. We see others. There's a matter of faith. We see others who are or have been following Krishna consciousness for a number of years, and they're extremely happy, like myself. I've been following Krishna consciousness for over 51 years, and my life gets better every day. I mean, how many people can say that about themselves? How many people who are 73 years old can say their life gets better every day? This every day gets better and better. I look forward to the next day because it's going to be better even tomorrow. So how many people can say that? But we see those examples of people like that. See, that reinforces our determination, our faith. When we see examples of people who actually either have made it or are very far progressed on the spiritual path. And then we know, I want to be like that. You have your role model. Like when I met Prabhupada in 1971, he became my role model. I said, I want to be like that. Not in charge of a whole movement. Not that stuff. But I want to be like that, have those qualities, be that compassionate like that. And so, therefore, I fixed my mind on the goal, and I did things that were hard for me in the beginning. Like, what was hard? Nothing. Anyways, well, one thing was hard, waking up early in the morning. That was a hard one. So chanting was easy, vegetarian was easy, reading Bhagavad Gita and studying Bhagavad Gita was actually quite easy. All the other things were quite easy. But anyway, I mean, I actually gave up living my opulent life before with boats and airplanes, and we had our own airplane, not just little quadcopter, something I could sit in. Boats and airplanes and everything like that, just to serve Krishna, and endured social pressure from relatives like that, and it was hard because I had this goal in mind. Of course, after that, after some time, my relatives really appreciated. My mother appreciated, my father appreciated, and they all loved what I was doing. They saw that I was happier than anyone else in my family, and they actually said, "This is really what we want from you." And they attributed their success in material life, because my family was quite successful materially, to my Krishna consciousness, to their son being Krishna conscious. So I sort of pulled them all up, even materially. So, but apart from that, this is goal-oriented. And so that's the process of bhakti. And it's not a difficult process. And we're not talking about, like mentioned here in this chapter, going to a secluded place and just like sitting on deerskin and not seeing people for a long period of time, no social interaction, no mobile phones. Can you imagine a yogi in the Himalayas checking his Twitter account? Or doing selfies. Here's me meditating. I'm really advanced. No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. So Krishna consciousness is very easy. A few simple rules and regulations, like no meat, fish, or eggs, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. And above that, chanting Krishna's name. That's it. Offering your food to Krishna. And being determined to do that. It doesn't require you to become like a monk, wear some robes. You can dress in any way you want as long as it's decent. Like we have people dress in all sorts of different ways. You don't have to adjust your culture. You simply have to take up this process. And by taking up the process of Krishna consciousness and studying these books, which actually help you understand why you're doing what you're doing and help you be enthused in doing that, then gradually the consciousness becomes clear, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu states, Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Bhava Mahad Bhakti Nirvapanam. The mirror of the heart, the mirror of the mind becomes cleansed. And then one is able to perceive spiritual reality. So the first step, just to reiterate, the first step is called sadhana. Bhakti means practice. You're practicing. And the first part of that is called vaidhi. Vaidhi means you're following rules and regulations. Even though you may not be so inclined to follow those rules and regulations, still you do it because you want that thing at the end. You want that goal. You're very determined like that. And then after some time, as things get clearer, then you start to do the same things because you like to do them and spontaneous. Like you start thinking like Rupa Goswami, a great acharya, states, you wish for millions and millions of tongues and millions of ears. So you can hear Krishna's name more and more and more. It becomes like nectar. And then gradually you become detached from the things that are counterproductive to spiritual life. So it's a gradual process. Just gradual. It's not a question that someone has to jump into it completely. It's a question of just putting her little toe in, as they say. Like going swimming. You put your toe in to test the water. So you put your toe in and the water feels good. And you go in a little further and further and further, and it just gets better and better. And then ultimately, when you really have a clear mind and clear consciousness, you'll understand your spiritual identity. We have a spiritual identity that's different from this body. Different from what we call upadhis. Upadhi means a designation. Designation means man, woman, American, student, scholar. All these are different upadis, or even like intelligent, stupid, designations or labels we put on ourselves and we put on others. So one becomes freed from all these upadis, and then you actually see your true spiritual identity. Not only that you are a spiritual entity, but what you do in the spiritual realm. We all have an individual relationship with Krishna, the supreme person in the spiritual realm. We may be his buddy. Just think, wouldn't that be nice to be the buddy of Krishna? Krishna's buddy. You may be Krishna's lover. You may be Krishna's parent. You may be Krishna's servant in the spiritual world. So that's the process of bhakti yoga. And it's so easy. As Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita about the other process that's presented in this chapter, he says, Janshalahi manaha Krishna, pramati balavad dridam, tashaham nigraham manye, vayor iva shidushkaram. That's following this other process of what we call the Ashtanga Yoga system. I actually started talking about that, yam and then niyam. Yam means all these restrictions. Niyam means positive injunctions, like going to a secluded place. And then asana, sitting in a certain posture. Pranayam, that means breathing in a certain way with the different nostrils, like that. Offering the ongoing breath to the outgoing breath, and the outgoing breath to the ingoing breath. Does anyone know how to do that? You do? Good. We got some yogis here. And then ultimately, yam, niyam, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, withdrawing. Withdrawing all your senses from the external sense objects, Vachara, dharana, jhana, and jhana and samadhi, and ultimately being focused and completely absorbed, that's samadhi, which is a very hard process. So Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, in this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, objects to that process because he can't do it. And Arjuna is a heck of a lot more qualified than any of us. I mean, he's in a previous yuga. Previous yuga, everybody was pretty qualified. He was a friend of Krishna's. He was so intelligent, he learned the whole Bhagavad Gita in 35, 40 minutes. And for the rest of us, it's 35 or 40,000 years to learn the whole Bhagavad Gita, or at least 35, 40 years to learn the whole Bhagavad Gita. But Arjuna learned it 35, 40 minutes. Intelligent, super bright personality. But he says to Krishna, I can't do this other stuff. He says, Chanchala hi manaha Krishna. That my mind, or the mind, is chanchala. Chanchala means flickering all the time. Chanchala hi manaha. The mind just keeps going from thing to thing, one thing to another. He says, basically, he says, I have ADD. Put in modern nomenclature. Attention deficit disorder. Right? So it just goes from one thing to another. And you see that nowadays, of course, because people are so addicted to their mobile phones and everything like that, and instant gratification, their mind just like jumps from one thing. They can't sit down and study at the university, get anything done, because it's just like boom, 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 boom. It's like a tennis game, basically. So Arjuna, he wasn't exactly like that. Wasn't like some of the Kali Yuga people I know. So Arjuna, he said, Chanchala manaha Krishna. Krishna, this is, I can't control it. And to control the mind is like, my mind is like controlling the wind. Just try that sometimes, just try to think of nothing. How could you think of nothing? Because when you think of nothing and you realize you're thinking of nothing, you're actually thinking of nothing. So, right? It's like, oh yeah, I finally was able to make my mind blank. Well, you were aware that you were making your mind blank, so that means your mind wasn't blank. right? So can't. So anyway, or focus on it. I remember many years ago, before I actually took up bhakti yoga, I practiced hatha yoga. And so, one of the things, you're supposed to focus on the light of a candle. So just candlelight. It was interesting. I couldn't do it for very long. So Arjuna objects to this whole process that's presented here, and Krishna ultimately says you should practice bhakti yoga. And what does bhakti yoga mean? In addition to the chanting, okay, let's get to some more details, because you say, well, how can I just live just by chanting and just by waking up at some ungodly hour of the morning, early in the morning, and what else do I do with my life? Well, the point is, to engage in bhakti yoga, everybody has a certain psychophysical nature, and they can engage that in doing something practical for Krishna. If someone is a businessman, they can do business. That's yoga. That's the most wonderful thing, that if you're a businessman, you're doing business and giving the results to Krishna, obviously. Is yoga. Wow. What are you doing today at the factory? I'm doing yoga. Right? Or if you're a teacher, you're giving the results to Krishna, you're doing it. It's yoga. Or if you're married and you're having children, that's yoga. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that so easy compared to sitting in a secluded place, controlling your mind and the ingoing breath and the outgoing breath and the nostrils and the postures. I have nothing against postures. I know quite a few of them. One of my disciples who I asked to come here, may come here, is actually the foremost posture expert in the world. It's Gokul Chandra. You can actually check him out on the internet sometime. He's in New York right now. He's a famous yogi. So I have nothing against it. But it's a lot easier, yat karos yadash nasiyat jahoshi dadasiyat yat apashashi kontiyat hat karushwa madarpanam. That whatever you're doing, you do it for Krishna. I mean, a certain limitation. You can't be a butcher for Krishna. But whatever you're doing, businessman, teacher, mother, father, construction engineer, artist, you name it, as far as occupations are concerned, as long as it doesn't involve, intoxication. Don't grow marijuana for Krishna, even though it's a very lucrative business. In many states, it's legal. I don't think it's legal here in North Carolina. But, so what? So you do other types of business, and your mind is engaged. Savai mana Krishna Padara Vindya. You engage. The whole point is to focus the mind and engage the mind, and that's part of yoga, and that is so easy to do. And that's what Krishna is talking about here. And I'll read the verse again, of course, then we'll take questions. And of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. And that's the essence of bhakti yoga. The chanting, the diet, a few simple restrictions, little yum there, restrictions, like no meat, fish, or eggs, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. Why do we recommend those things? Because those particular activities, if you don't follow the restrictions, they create bad karma. And they put you in lower modes of nature. Two things. Bad karma means you get further entangled. Nobody wants bad karma. Something happens to you, something bad happens to you, that's bad karma. So I think most people would want to avoid bad karma, right? That's a bad reaction to something you do. So, and most people would want to avoid being in the lower modes of nature, the mode of ignorance. Because every activity that you do in this world, other than for Krishna, carries some modes of nature connected to it. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Karnam Guna Sangasha, Sadasad Jadma Jonishu. Whatever you do has modes of nature, except for Krishna service, except for yoga. And so if you take intoxication, illicit sex, gambling, meat eating, and it's also detrimental and harmful to the body. That's another thing. All these activities are actually harmful to the body. For example, intoxication, so many brain cells get destroyed each time you take a swig of alcohol. Isn't it terrible? Can you imagine? We have a limited number of brain cells. Of course, there's billions and trillions. But I basically need all of them that I got. Should try to keep them all as long as possible. So anyway, for those reasons, you follow the principles, you chant Hare Krishna, you offer your food to Krishna, you're happy, your family is all centered on the same goal, and everyone's loving each other. I mean, what could be nicer? You realize your spiritual identity, you have a goal in life rather than just eating for the sake of living or living for the sake of eating. You have some higher goal. Isn't it? I mean, life without a goal is terrible. And what's the purpose of life? If you ask people, what's your purpose of life? And they say, the purpose of life is simply to survive. That's one reason I was interested in spiritual life, because when I asked my preceptors when I was young, what's the purpose of life? They say the purpose of life is simply to just live and reproduce. Well, the animals are doing that too, isn't it? They're just living and reproducing, taking care of their kids and everything like that. So that's not the purpose of life. So anyway, so it gives you a purpose to focus on. It engages you in yoga 24 hours a day. I mean, what could be better than this bhakti yoga system? Okay, on that happy note, see, I didn't read anything except for the translation. Any questions or comments anyone would have about anything we said? Yes, did you? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think ultimately one studies Sankhya, real Sankhya, they'll actually see that we have varieties and persons in this world, and this world must have a source, and the source must have everything that this world has plus more. You never have an emanation that has more qualities than the emanator. I think ultimately, but going back to your question, my experience is that people take to an impersonal understanding or nihilistic understanding because they've been traumatized in this world. There's a lot of people with, I hate to use this expression, PTSD. Actually, most people do have PTSD of this world because things happen. As you get older. Maybe you don't have any personal diseases, but then you see people die. I mean, just recently, some of my relatives died. My mother passed away. And then even when here's an interesting story that proves my point. When I was going to religious school when I was young, I went to religious school, not a Hare Krishna religious school, believe me. The teacher came and taught us at a religious school, God-centered religious school. The teacher made the statement, class, it was either mother or father just died, and I came to the conclusion that after death there's nothing. So you could see that there was an emotional reaction we are emotional beings. And generally, what we become attracted to, even in spiritual life, is due to our emotional state. I have found that people who actually have severe experiences in this world, it's a real challenge to convince them. But people who have not had those like super severe experiences in this world, that may not be as big a challenge to convince them. Because usually behind any particular philosophical approach that people have, there's actually a psychology. So I would say, if one really studies Sankhya, one, especially taught by Lord Kapila, that one will come to the conclusion that there's some higher truth variety, which is the source of the variety in this world. And if one is innocent. There's like this story in the Jaiva Dharma about the sannyasi who was convinced in impersonalism. But when a devotee came and chanted near him, he heard the sound of the holy name and he became attracted, and he just ran off to Mayapur and took shelter of devotees and became a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So my experience is that people take to those particular philosophies. Another reason they take to the philosophy, but this is not true in impersonalism, is that those who are preaching impersonalism in the Western world just give them an easy out. That you don't have to do anything. Everything's one. Ultimately, just got to love without any restrictions. So Westerners in general tend to like things like religion in a pill. There was even one impersonalist who said, God has appeared in Kali Yuga as a pill, referring to, an hallucinogen. So that's another reason people take to not real impersonalism, because real impersonalism or real Sankhya impersonalism is actually a very arduous process. But what is presented to many Western people is something that is so watered down, it's not even true impersonalism, but it's an easy thing that anybody can do. There's nothing to do, actually. There's nothing to do because you don't have to make any personal commitment. And the thing is with Bhakti Yoga, you make personal commitments. Not only for your own self, but you make commitments to Krishna, you make commitments to Guru, you make commitments to other spiritualists. It's all based on relationships. And because people have had painful relationships, it's very hard for many people, or because people don't want to do the work. To do anything, to accomplish anything in this world, usually, unless you're born in a very wealthy family, you have to do some work. You have to do some work. So the modern version of impersonalism that's presented in America, and India too, actually, not just in America, it's just something like, do whatever, there's no rules and regulations, eat anything you want, have an intimate relationship with anyone you want, smoke anything you want, it doesn't matter, ultimately, you'll just become love. Phew! I mean, it's cheap. Yeah, it's laziness. It's just cheap, it's just cheap. It's just to say, don't do anything but you make $1 million. It's like the lottery. It's a cheating process. Like the lottery, I mean, once in a while people win the lottery. So it's even worse than the lottery. But for each person who wins the lottery, otherwise they wouldn't have lotteries. Or it's like going to Las Vegas. I've been sometimes I go through the airport when I'm traveling around in Las Vegas, and then they have all these one-armed bandits. They even call them bandits. They're slot machines. And the people just going like this, throwing their money in it, hoping they're going to win. the jackpot. And so usually you can't get something for nothing in this world. So, but bhakti yoga involves making a very easy commitment. It's not very difficult, but there are certain restrictions. Like in hatha yoga, there are certain restrictions, but there's much more. Much more restrictions in hatha yoga than to actually be a yogi in hatha yoga. There's much more restrictions. Like Prabhupada said, you can't do it in a modern city. You know, you have to separate yourself from the rest of humanity, or at least from those who aren't practicing yoga, and be fully absorbed for a long period of time. And some yogis, they surround themselves by fire in the summer. And in India, that's not that easy because it gets up to 130 degrees. Can you imagine that? You can cook without a stove in India in the summer. I've been there. You can literally cook. It's like walking out after 8 o'clock in the morning is like walking into a convection oven. You know that, isn't it? Especially in UP. It's really bad. Uttar Pradesh. So that's yogis. You endure these austerities. You just sit there. And you... So bhakti yoga is quite easy, but it does require some commitment. But the end is that you have this wonderful spiritual relationship that's a source of joy. It's not simply a negation or an ending of the miseries, but it's rising above the miseries of this world and being absorbed in ecstasy all the time. I mean, I wouldn't do anything different. After all these years, I wouldn't do anything different than I'm doing now. So, any other questions? Yes? That's right. It's desire. Everyone has their own desire. There's something called samskaras. You're probably aware of that. Like everybody has impressions from the past and desires of their own, and some people are more progressed spiritually than others are progressed spiritually. So we just have to be patient with others. Because in a family, sometimes you'll find someone who's very enthusiastic about spiritual life, and you'll find someone not at all interested. But those who are very enthusiastic should take that as a lesson in compassion and tolerance and love. Because part of being an advanced spiritualist is not only love with Krishna, but love of everybody. Because Krishna says, Aham bija pradapita. He said, I am the seed-giving father of everybody. Mamagvangsa jivaloke jivabhuta sanatana. Manashakshtani andriyani prakritishtani karshati. Where everyone's a brother and sister. So if you have a brother who's a little stubborn, you don't reject him. You actually may even give him more love. Isn't it? Like even in the Bible it says, Jesus Christ says when you have these animals, the lambs, and which one does the shepherd pay attention to? Does anyone know? The one who runs away. I'm paraphrasing, of course. So a true spiritualist loves everybody. And so if someone is not inclined, we still love them, and whatever they're willing to accept is all voluntary. We don't send anyone to hell. It's all voluntary, isn't it? We offer Krishna consciousness to others, just like I'm doing. We don't preach at people. We don't threaten people that if you don't do this, you're going to, the Yamadutas are coming to take you away, they're coming to take you away, like that song goes. We just offer something so nice. Here's something so nice. And if someone takes it, they take it. And if someone takes 0.1%, that's also nice. Because Krishna says in the Gita, Swapam Vapyasha Dharmasha Trayato Mahata Vayat, that someone makes a little endeavor, a little advancement, they don't lose that. If you can help someone become 1/1,000,000% Krishna conscious, then they'll keep it with them eternally. Okay? Yes, we tolerate and we love everybody. A devotee doesn't hate anyone or hate anything. Yeah. Yeah, but that's up to the individual. Some people get a bachelor's degree. Some people leave after 2 years. Some people get a PhD, and some people get 3 or 4 PhDs. Depends on, and it's but it's not like in the university you can just like fake it. Sometimes in the university you can actually fake it and get a degree in basket weaving or something like that. But with Krishna, you can't fake it because Krishna is in your heart. Sarvasya chaham hriya sanavishta. So you really have to. But the work is done out of love, out of your choice, not because you have to. You shouldn't do anything because you have to. You should do things because you choose to do them. And it's such a nice thing. You know, if I offer you like eternal blissful life of relationships, loving relationships, it's your choice. You can say, no, I don't want that. I want a temporary life of hateful relationships. Okay, you choose. Temporary life, you know, with no goal, bad karma. Your choice. I'm simply here to offer the different alternatives. Okay, I think we should end now. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us. Next week we have this amazing Holy Festival. Holy Festival is like sort of like a replica of what the gopis and Krishna did over 5,000 years ago, and they do in the spiritual world. And it's a great celebration, and everyone has fun. It's called the Festival of Colors, that everybody has these colors, these either watercolor, you know, in a water pistol, or powdered colors, and they throw it at each other, and they chant Hare Krishna at the same time. It's a really amazing festival. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, bring everyone. We won't tell anyone what to do, what not to do. No. It's a free-for-all. As long as you don't harm someone. It's supposed to be fun. I was in India several times during the Holi Festival. There's one holy part called Latmar Holi. And I was at a place called Barshana. And I didn't know it was Latmar Holi. I thought, Holi was over because in Vrindavan, they rotate the Holi Festival from one part to another. So where I was, it was over. I thought, okay, it's safe to go out. So I take the taxi to Barshana. Barshana is Radharani's place, of course. And I didn't understand that on a particular day, in the Latmar Holi, the ladies beat the men, and they throw colors all over them, and the men are just like victims. I mean, they don't kill them, or fortunately. But they have these sticks. So I arrive in my taxi thinking I'm just going to have a good day chanting Hare Krishna and visiting Barshana, Radharani's place. So I get out of the taxi, and like 50 women say, "There he is." And they're all on me, like beating me and everything. Not hard, throwing dice, having a good time, and I'm complete. This nice new dhoti that I just spent $1 million on. Anyway, whatever it was. It becomes completely covered. And so I just I go off the path, I go through the forest just to get away from them, and I'm hiding there. And finally, when the group goes away, I run back to the car. So that's what you could expect. No, not with the sticks, but everything else. It's a fun festival. There'll be music, and everybody can come. And it's Krishna conscious because there'll be the chanting of Krishna's names at the same time, and some Krishna conscious drama or dance put on by Champakalata. Okay, I guess that's it. So you have some announcements? No, that's it. So there'll be prasadam right now. Prasadam is spiritual food. It's served downstairs for everybody. There'll be a lot of food next week. And during the festival, before the main food is served out, there'll be actually food for purchase. But then after everybody's covered with red and blue and purple and chartreuse and polka dots, then after that we'll have a very big vegetarian feast for everybody. So bring everybody. Bring your friends, Western, Eastern, Northern, Southern, Eskimos. I mean, whoever you want. What? Yeah, Martians. Anybody who has a human body. Anybody who has a human body, they can come. And it's fun. I mean, spiritual life should be fun. If you're not having fun doing spiritual life, you're doing the wrong spiritual life, or you're not doing it the right way. I'm having so much fun that sometimes I'm having so much fun I can't stop laughing. So that's how spiritual life should be. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. So again, let's thank His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj for the wonderful class on Bhagavad Gita. Hari Bol! Also, a few families have come during the class. Anyone here for the first time? We didn't get the chance to introduce earlier. You have been here before? Okay. Okay. So those are here and who are not in touch with our regular emails or WhatsApp, please give me your contact. So we'll let you know about our upcoming festivals. And as Maharaj mentioned, next Sunday we'll have Holi celebration. So it'll be nice Holi with cultural performances, and there'll be prasadam stalls. So it'll be very, very wonderful. So please do join us next Sunday. And 10th of April is Ram Navami.